especially in these unprecedented times. We are here to support you in any way we can, so please reach out. What I want to focus on today is our Widex ear tips and molds. As it is no secret, Widex has had some big changes over the last 8 months, and this is one of the topics that we want to cover. Before I go ahead, I do want to introduce you to the team. I know you are probably getting used to our faces, but we have Jacinta Mallis, who is looking after South Australia, WA and Queensland, myself with Victoria and Tassie, and Brent over in New Zealand, and Mitch, who is also looking after ACT and New South Wales. As most of you already know, we are no longer making our molds custom molds in Melbourne or Brisbane. It is being done in an offshore facility, being AMC, who have been making molds for the past 8 years. So what we have been working on and what I want to go over with you today is a new earpiece overview document. This will be available in the chat box for you if you haven't already downloaded it in the invitation email. The earpiece overview document, it was created as a guide to help you in clinic to see what is current, what's available when ordering custom ear tips and molds with the various different tubing and receiver options that we have in our Widex Moment, Magnify and the older technology Evoke. I now want you to introduce you to Scott Edwards. He is our WSA Shell Lab team leader. Scott has been working in the industry since 2003, and he's been working with ear molds since 2005. So I think we are in pretty good hands. Scott is the WSA Shell Lab leader and who I have worked really closely with over the past couple of months to create this earpiece overview document. That main aim being to align the internal language that we use with the external language for you, our customers. If I'm honest, Scott is probably most definitely sick of seeing my face popping up, but he is going to give a quick summary of his role, and you know, you can see that there are real people working behind this. So Scott, I'll hand over to you just to give us a bit of a recap, if we can. How are we going, Al?
Yeah, we're going fine. Just trying to get.
Can we get Scott? Basically, Scott, him and I have been doing a lot of meetings just to get this language aligned. So it means that when we are ordering things from the start of the process to the end of the process, that everything is going to marry up with our order form, our e-shop, everything like that. So it's just going to limit the limitations of the system. Do we have Scott available? If we don't, we can always jump him on at the end. I just want to put a face to a name. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep moving. Before I go on to the earpiece overview guide, I do want to show you super quickly. This is a slide that I've broken down where you can see the BTE and the RIC hearing aid range. Okay, so I've broken it down to show you which devices go with the version 2 and version 1 thin tubing or easy wear RIC options. Okay, the reason being that I have done this is because when you order something, the various custom ear tips and molds will differ. All right, and I'll go into a depth a little bit further down. So here we have the overview of all our sort of ear tips molds that are available. First, we have our instant fitting domes. These are interchangeable across the entire range. They are acoustically and accurately modelled, especially with our updated True Acoustics, which would have come out with the GPS Compass 4.2 update, and it's to ensure that there's no drawback. So even in an instant fitting dome, you still need to treat it like it is a customised fit for your clients. With a BTE or RIC option, with an instant fitting, I do just want to put out there, it is a really quick turnaround at the moment. So if you order something without a custom mold and just an instant fit, we have 24 hours. So if it leaves, if you get the order in by 12 p.m. that afternoon, it's either sent out that afternoon or the very next day. I have had a look at over the responses we got from some of the questions that we sent out when you were registering, and it does look like the dome of choice for a few of you, or quite a lot, was the tulip. And it looks like a lot of you chose the domes over a custom, I suppose, depending on the hearing loss and the type. What I would love you all is to write a few words or just a one-word response in 2 or 3 words, just to tell me what you like about the domes. Al, do we have any of those popping up or the comments coming through? But what I want to do, the reason I want to do this is I will address it later down the track. So I guess with the domes, a few of you probably feel that it is comfortable, it's an easier fit option and things like that. But again, I just want to reiterate, you still want to treat it as a customized fit. So then we go into our custom ear tips over here. Okay, so these are for your thin tubes and receivers, and then we've got our classic BTE molds for your standard tubing. Now, our custom ear tip and classic mold options will come in various material and different retention options. I will touch on that later, but basically the turnaround time for our custom options is 10 days in-house. So if you were to order something and it comes in by 11 a.m. that day, it is then modeled and sent off to the offshore AMC. It takes 3 days max there, and then it's shipped straight back to Brisbane, then out to the clinic for you. So that's 10 days in-house, meaning once it gets to Brisbane and then before it leaves. Now, what we're all here for is that Widex the earpiece overview. Okay, so this is for our Moment, Magnify, and the Evoke range. So this is a quick example of what you'll find. We're currently looking at the version 1 model, and what you'll see to the left, you will have the loss. Then you will have the hearing aids that are available. Then it comes into the strength of the receiver, and then you have the sizes, and then you can see clearly on the end the custom ear tip options that are available with each of these hearing aids and strength options. Then I'm just going to quickly show you briefly. Here's the version 2 model, and just basically you move through the same as you would. So there is a page for version 1 and version 2 BTE models as well for the thin tubing. When you move further through the document, you will come to pages that look like this, which are designed for both, again, version 1 EasyWear and version 2 EasyWear, which falls under our thin tube and our receiver options. So what I'm going to focus on today is here, it's the version 2 option and what is available. The reason I want to touch on this a little bit more, because I want to really focus, we've mentioned the the domes, the instant domes, but what we want to focus on is the custom ear tips. So when you order an open ear tip that is hard, what you will receive, basically it means it's an open venting, but at the top and the bottom. Okay, if you are wanting a vent that is just at the bottom, this is when you would order your hard ear tip, okay, and that is where you would get a 1.6 millimeter vent. If you go to an extended, to sort of show you the transition, you would order a 3 millimeter vent, and that sort of is the open vent for an extended. Now, going back to your open ear tip, it is a hollow mold. Okay, so when it comes back, it is hollow at the back end. The same for the ear tip in the hard, that is also hollow. When you move to your extended ear tip, as well as an embedded, which I will show you, that is where the mold is solid. Okay, so I guess why you would order a extended ear tip would be if someone has retention issues. They are a little bit more robust because they are solid. I've had clients, with very narrow canals, a bit bendy. What it does, it extends it out a little bit more, so the sound is also more precise going into the ear canal. And it also helps to minimize feedback, which is as it sits deeper. Okay. What I will go, and I am going to just quickly go and show you the next as there is the embedded option here. So the embedded is when the receiver is built in. You cannot take the receiver in and out. So that would be more likely for your really high power receiver options. Okay, so just quickly again, you can see how the hard and soft and the material they come in. What you'll have underneath is they will say the colors, so transparent or beige, and then you'll have whether they're hollow or solid. Again, the extended ear tip, if you are wanting that medium or longer canal length, that is when you would order the extended. Your standard ear tip, and probably our ear tip of choice, will be the hard ear tip here, and that is a shorter canal length of around 9 millimeter or 6 millimeters, and the extended is 9 to 12. Okay. Then what you can see as you move further down the page, we have our receivers and our thin tubing. Okay, just to quickly mention, I suppose, the design of our receivers, they are quite unique to Widex. A lot of you will see is they actually sit back a little bit. They're angled that way, so it gives enough force in the ear canal so it's secure, so it can't move. It's just better for retention, meaning, you know, you don't have to use those retention wires or things like that, and they are still really, really comfortable. One thing I do really quickly want to mention is all the version 2 thin tube receiver options and ear tips ordered for a version 2 or thin tube will be different to that of a version 1, and I'm going to show you in the next slide. So here, what you can see, I have broken it down again into your version 1 and your version 2. So our version 1 molds or custom molds that you will get will come with that 4-prong, which is probably what you're familiar with if you have used Widex custom ear tips before. The version 2 comes with this, I call it a key and lock. Now, they will be different when you're ordering them. And the version 2 thin tube and medium receiver, version 2, are interchangeable, which is really, really good. If you're getting a power, obviously it's a bigger receiver, so you will need to get one remade. Now, when I talk about this, when you're ordering on eShop, again, we are using all these documents that we're creating, and we are still focusing on eShop, and that's still in works to get that aligned with the language we're using here. But when you are ordering a remake, I just want to touch on that. If you use the last impression sent to Widex, which is the raw data, it's going to be a brand new model. So it's a brand new model and print. So it is a different hearing aid. If you use the last printed shell, which is what I would recommend, that is when you are getting the last successful printed shell with all the adjustments that I've needed. On this, I do really want to quickly touch on the fact that if you are asking for a remake of a mold that was in Melbourne, a Melbourne modeled mold, Scott and his team don't have access to that data to change it. Even a slight change as a vent size or adding a canal lock, they can't do that. So it means that the whole mold will have to be remodeled, and they will base it off what has been ordered in the eShop order. Okay. On this, I suppose as I said, there has been massive changes from Widex and the move to Brisbane. What's happening is with the Widex Denmark mold recipe. When it was in Melbourne, you know, we were able to market and change and adjust and customize our molds to our market, to what was desired. We had more access because we had the printing here. As we've become a larger company and moving up to Brisbane and the printing in AMC, it is a little bit more rigid. So again, this is something that Scott and I have been continuing to refine and work on and to get that desired outcome for you guys, but we do really need your help. So don't be hesitant to reach out to us. We really want to help and see, you know, what you're liking in your molds as well, and any feedback is really good. So this is a document and it's a work in progress. I know it's not all that pretty, but it's something that I just wanted to show you and I've made because I think it is something that will really help in terms of the earpiece guide of the styles of the retention options that you can get. So this just outlines, as you can see here, this is your custom ear tip styles for your thin tubes and receivers. So you have on your top this is your hard material, soft material, and the type is embedded as well here. And what you will see is what you can get in the hard ear tip, the soft ear tip, and your embedded options as well. So it's just sort of really breaking it down for you. The next, we obviously have one just quickly for your classic BT mold styles as well. So again, you can see an open ear mold. It means an open vent. You can only get in the skeleton, semi-skeleton, and so forth. So these are just to really give you an idea of what's been broken down. Now, I will, you know, get this document sorted and it may look pretty, and then we can send that out as well. And I think this as well with the earpiece overview guide will be really, really beneficial for a lot of you to use when ordering Widex. Now, again, I did look over some of the challenges that some of you have faced with Widex earpieces, and I know some of you wanted to brush up, get more familiar, especially since the change of what is available. Others were a little bit unfamiliar with the names, so I hope that I have clarified that a little bit further for you today. And I do have Brent here today who is actually going to run you through some ideas in relation to his experiences and some cases where I think some of you, mentioned some of these words on this slide where you were having a little bit of trouble with. So what I'm going to do is hand over to Brent. If we can.
Hopefully everyone
Yes,
can hear
we
me.
can hear you.
Before I start though, there's man standing there or sitting there very patiently waiting. Scott, I'm assuming your mic's on. Would you like to say something
yes,
first?
Yes, please.
Hi everyone, as Taylah mentioned, I'm Scott and I currently lead the shell lab for Widex ear molds. I have been in the industry since 2003 and been working with ear molds since 2005. Widex is quite new to me. As Taylah mentioned, we took over Widex 8 months ago and it is quite different. So one of the reasons that Taylah done this was so we can all talk the same terminology. I think one of the things from the change from Melbourne to Brisbane is Melbourne used different terminology to what we're using in Brisbane. So basically, if there's an issue, you guys can give us a call between the sales reps and the guys locally and my team. We'll all be talking the same terminology, same ear mold style. So if there's an issue, it's not being spoken about in 2 or 3 different terms. One of the big things that I've noticed since taking over Widex is the design is totally different to what the team's used to. But I think we've come a long way in the last, I'd say 5 months in starting to understand this and get the molds more suited to what all you guys are used to with Widex. I think Taylah raised a good point with when we're asked to use the last prior shell. I think one thing that we could do from the clinician side, which would help us locally a tiny bit, is sometimes there's 3 or 4 different old printed shells. And as Taylah mentioned, we're going to go off the last successful one, but sometimes that's not always the one that was successful for your client. So if it is 2 or 3 successful fittings ago, maybe like a date and timeline from you guys would help us greatly in making sure we select the correct ear mold. One of the big challenges is when we change the style a tiny bit. As Taylah mentioned, because it was modeled by Melbourne originally, we've got access to the data and the printed shell. But if, for example, you order a canal and now you want a canal lock, we can't actually physically use that canal. So what we do is normally take a reference photo of what Melbourne have modeled, and then we send that off to AMC for them to get the canal part right and just add the lock. That's probably the biggest challenge we've had at the moment, where a style change will affect the outcome, and we're trying to correct that. Other than that, to be honest, call the sales reps, phone myself. I'm sure Taylor can pass my number around, or Geraldine or Brent. I'm more than happy to speak to anybody if you're having issues. Sometimes, the notes will be misinterpreted, but when I'm discussing it with you on the phone, I can bring up the modeled file. We can talk about it. I can tell you what we can and can't do. As Taylor mentioned with the extended arm, that's one thing where people have asked for an open or just an ear tip, but due to the canal being bendy or too narrow, we can't actually achieve that. So we need to go to that extended style. Now, sometimes people aren't liking the outcome of that, and we understand that. But we also have the trouble where we can't actually achieve what you're after. So it's always good just to jump on the phone and we can discuss it. Other than that, guys, everything's starting to look better from my side, and to be honest, I've enjoyed working with everybody, and it's been a good challenge taking on Widex. But feel free to phone me, and I'm more than willing to talk to you guys.
Thanks so much, Scott. It's really good to sort of put a face behind the whole works. And again, we are reiterating that we're trying to align that language just to make it easier for all of us when throughout the whole ordering process and getting the molds. So thank you for coming on today, Scott. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, I am going to go over to Brent now. And so again, we just wanted to touch on some of the, I guess, challenges that some of you raised in the registration. So Brent, if you're there,
yes, yeah,
just covering some of these words for me.
No problem. So hello to everyone from lockdown in Auckland. So we're presenting in all different parts of the world today. I'm going to first talk on the troubleshooting issues that you all put through when Taylor bravely asked in the questionnaire what were some of the things that bothered you with some of the outcomes you're getting with custom fits and Widex fits. So I'll cover each of these points. We've got some rough categories. The first one is poor fit. So obviously it's frustrating when you get a poor fit and the hearing aid you get back is not fitting well. Unfortunately, and with modern technology, I have to put it back to the clinic in a lot of ways for this, because everything is digitally scanned these days. In the past, we used to build up with wax, and we changed the fit at that point. With digital modeling, the impression is modeled 100% accurately from the very beginning, then the shell's made off that and things. So it's extremely unlikely to get a poor fit from the actual modeling itself. Most of the time, unfortunately, this will be due to an inaccurate impression. So whenever it's the poor fit, the best thing really you can do is please take another impression and take a photo of how that poor fit looks and things, a digital photo, and send it in to your local rep is probably the best, and they'll pass it on to Scott and the team. The picture often gives a lot of the information on what's going on and things. Yeah. So in general, poor fit more often than not is going to have to come from that first part of the process, and that's the impression.
And on that, I would just like to touch, there was a printing sort of error that has been rectified, but that was fairly early on. So, the shell is a little bit thicker now as well. So we're going to have less issues with that fit. And exactly, correct. So it's back to what Brent said.
Yeah. And they can, if you request that, they can build it up if someone likes a tighter fit and things, or once again, you're initially saying it's loose. If the fit is just marginal, it's very easy to fix digitally. If it's really looking incorrect, then it needs another impression. The second, and please feel free to put in the chat if you want to put any comments and things, and we'll address them as we go through. The second one issue is feedback. So obviously the hearing aid is whistling with the new shell. So first off, Widex's Feedback Manager is different to every other companies in the market. Basically, how you run feedback managers these days, or the other manufacturers do, is they use a frequency shift. So the output frequency is slightly different to the input frequency, and this way you can really eliminate feedback. However, there is a cost to that. Well, a couple of things that happen. One is you get a longer delay time, and the second is with the losing my train of thought. First of all is the delay time, and the second is when you tag it, the output sound, of course, is not quite natural. It's off tune. Now, in general conversation, a lot of people won't pick up the difference, but if anyone's playing a musical instrument or listening to music, that's when you'll get the odd client saying, when I hear it back, it's off key, what's going on? That is that slight frequency shift that's happening on the output. Now, Widex doesn't do that. Of course, the key strategy with Widex, one of the key things we're about is sound quality. So there is no frequency shifting going on. That and the time delay, we want a very, very narrow time delay, does mean that we have to make some changes with our feedback manager, and we aren't able to do that frequency shift. So in the end, it does mean that you have a slight more chance of feedback with a Widex device, but it really depends on what you're going for fitting. I think realistically, when we're looking at our fitting goals, feedback is not right at the top. We deal with the problem when it comes, but it's not the I want to buy a hearing aid that doesn't feedback is not generally the top goal. So it is worth working around. There are some other options for feedback as well. You can go into fine tuning and go into the feature settings and try super gain fast. So if there's intermittent feedback, that'll take care of that. Say they're putting on a sun hat or something like that, that will fix those sort of feedback problems. And once again, it could be, if it's worst case scenario, there has been some shrinkage in the impression, something's gone wrong, and either the venting's too big or the fit is too loose. And in that case, of course, same with any other brand, you would need to do a reshell if it's that bad.
Yeah. And just to touch on the Widex Feedback Manager as well, it is sort of a cancellation. So it works with an adaptive and active cancellation system for both the audible and inaudible. So that's definitely where some of our benefits lie with Widex.
Yep. So now I'm going to cover occlusion. So what I would say about occlusion is you're going to have to look at it a bit more in depth. There's a few reasons for occlusion, and one is what sort of venting do you have on the device? It may need more venting. That is certainly a possibility. However, we do know that the delay in the circuit with a digital hearing aid also causes what clients refer to as an occlusion effect. So going to Widex's pure sound may make a big difference for any client who's complaining of occlusion as well. So how you get the occlusion is when there's a delay in the hearing aid, they're actually hearing their voice trail back, and that's where they're sort of hearing their voice in the head. So it's not necessarily because the ear's blocked, it's because of the delay. So using pure sound will fix that as well. I would recommend you turn off the hearing aid if they're getting occlusion and see if they are still getting occlusion with that device. If they are not when it's switched off, it's highly unlikely to be the fit. It's more than likely to be some sort of circuit issue and things that's causing that. And of course, small tuning changes, you can lower the low frequency sounds on the device if you've got some gain there, and that sometimes can help with occlusion as well. Did you want to say anything on that, Taylah?
No, I think that's really good. I think that's one of the good little tips, is what I used to do as well, is if they felt that it was occluding, I would turn the actual sound off just to give an idea whether it was they needed a larger venting or it did come down to some of the sound processing, which is good. And I think, again, with the Widex are pretty known for their low frequency and the expansion of that too. So it's once you do you follow the fitting sort of guides that we have, you get a pretty good first fit. It's not, you don't get too much of that occlusion as you would have in probably the older technology levels as well.
Yeah. So the next one is profile, and I think in the last few months we've all seen that, and that's something Scott actually just alluded to a little bit as we've learnt what's going on. So if the profile's maybe a bit too much out of the ear, you possibly don't want an extended tube or extended shell if that's what you've asked for. You may want a hard tip, so it will be a bit deeper in the ear. Once again, some photos for Scott can make a world of difference, so he can see exactly what's going on with the profile, have a look at his modeling and bits and pieces, and we can make the best recommendation going forward and things. Realistically, unless it's very, very narrow ears, we should these days be able to get a reasonably good profile on the device. Of course, the other option is it something you can use domes with, and can you get an instant fit and move away from the shell fit in itself and be successful with domes. I think going to domes in the initial fits, and it can save you and me a lot of time, and also be effective for the client as well, because it is for a lot of people a bit easier to put a dome in, and of course it's soft, it's a bit more comfortable, so it can be a lot easier to use. And of course with our receivers and tubes, often you don't need the sports lock or retaining wing on the shell, on the receiver. So when you put it's much easier to put in and out. You don't need to be fiddling around trying to get that in because of that patented bend on the receiver itself. So there's some good advantages there that can help you with the profile as well.
I think that also touches on the retention option.
Exactly. I'm sort of combine them both. Yeah, so with retention, I would be also looking very much at domes. You'll find they hold them very well. It's always a display I do, and feel free to do it yourself as clinicians, is put a demo pair in your ears. You'll find the receivers hold very well. I sometimes do it without any domes, shake my head around, and those hearing aids don't come out because of that bend on that receiver. Of course, everyone is a bit different, and on the odd one, you will need the retaining wings, and sometimes going to shells will be beneficial as well.
I am going to jump in because I am conscious of time. If people are free and they do want to stay on for questions, I think with the REMS anyway, it was something that if you're getting to your targets, and it's going to be a case-by-case situation. So I think in terms of that, if you do have a tricky case or something that you want us to look at, definitely give us a call. But we do have our speech tracker there, which is designed, and it is a verification method as well. So maybe comparing the two and just seeing if there is any difference, then maybe there's something else that's going on. But I do want to throw to the room, if people do want to stay around for 5 minutes and ask questions, please feel free. Brendan and I are here to answer as many as you can. But those who can't, I really do appreciate the time that you have taken to come to this webinar. I hope it has been useful, but please, again, reach out if there is anything that you need me to go over to make more clear for you. But does anyone have...
I'd say we will supply the recording. I don't know if we've said that.
Yeah,
so it's been recorded and we'll be sending that out.
We'll send the recording out as well. But does anyone have any questions?
Feel free to just type that into the chat.
Type it into the chat, and Al can read them out for us as well. Otherwise, you can just say, I'm sick of hearing your voice now. Any questions, Al?
And yeah, please do remember that we are Reps Without Borders. So if you want to talk to any one of us in particular, feel free to get in touch. We'd love to chat. Yeah,
we definitely do. Well, I'll wrap it up. But if you do have questions, just send them through to us after. Reach out to your reps, like Brent said, any of us. But I appreciate the time that you've taken today, and I really do hope that you have a lovely Friday. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Bye.